So may I also request the gentleman to switch on the mics, because we run into a classic problem of people start speaking and the mics are not on. Okay. Yeah, it's already on. Perfect. So data gravity was, when I chanced upon this word, I said, okay, by virtue of definition, GCCs and multinationals are sitting on an explosion of data across geographies, across clouds, regulations, business units, a lot more. But as data starts growing, something interesting starts happening, which is data begins to create its own gravity. The classic question is, applications are moving towards it, models are being created around it, regulation and regulatory regimes are trying to control it, and everything revolves around the data where it already exists. So for global enterprises, this creates a war. A centralized platform, local systems. Do you have to regulate it, or do you have to be agile? Does the data need to come to the applications, or do applications go to data? So this kind of creates a friction, and unfortunately or fortunately, GCCs are now becoming the new battleground of this. So how do multinationals actually solve this important problem? Because if you want to do AI, data is where your cornerstone and foundation is. So what we'll do, gentlemen, is we'll do a quick rapid fire. And then I'll come to individual questions. We'll start with Ansi, and then we'll end with Harpreet. Okay? From your vantage point, what is the single biggest data gravity challenge that multinational companies are facing right now?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect segue from the previous conversation where we kind of agreed that we can only manage complexity. Especially from the industry that we are operating, we are primarily into insurance. One of the biggest challenge for any insurance large organization is getting a global view in terms of their business. And over the last several years, each insurance carrier have their own systems of records. They have a specific module for systems of records for claims. They have something else for policies. So all the data is fragmented. The biggest challenge every organization at this point of time facing is, how do I bring together a unified view of data across my organization? I think that's the biggest challenge for us. And there are multiple solutions out there, but if I really look at probably 10 years back, probably we'll be discussing about, can I bring all the data into a common data store? Now at this point of time, yeah, that's not a feasible organization view. Probably having data mesh or any kind of federated architecture is going to be the biggest lever for any other organization to leverage data. So in short, the biggest challenge all of us face at this point of time, can I have a unified view of the data?
Unified, single pane of glass. Okay. Praveen?
I think that's a good start, Anzi. I'm going to say the biggest challenge we have, I represent Flutter Entertainment. We are the largest online gaming and betting platform across the globe. So you don't know it by the retail name, but we are like a brands, 10 to 12 brands together. The challenge we are facing, because of that segmented data sets across geographies, like we have a large brand presence in the US and in Australia. So the first thing that comes to my mind is data segmentation, and at the same time, regulation. So each geography presents its own regulatory requirements. So as you said, Anzi, centralized model was the wave 10 years ago, but now it's segmentation. At the same time, how do we get real-time fraud, risk, and price management across the globe? And that's what our relentless pursuit right now is, to kind of get that data in the right place. And I don't want to use the word war because there's a lot of sentiment around it right now, but I'll just stick to data. And I think data and value go together, and that's our biggest challenge right now. So.
Yeah, I think a good point made on the war as well. Let's not use it. Okay. We'll probably use a data gravity friction or something like that. Okay. So, yes. Shekhar?
Yeah. Thank you, Economic Times. Thank you, GCC Summit team. Thank you for the opportunity. So I am new brand in the city, Octave, but of course old-timer in city, 40 years old, as called a Wintergraph. But thank you. But coming back to this challenge, what I would like to say is enterprise applications no more a system of record. We want to call it system of intelligence. And new infrastructure is context. It's no more data, static data. We need to bring the context. And because we cannot pull all the data into center, because our customers, they work across the globe. They take up projects. They take up a data in America, in the Middle East, but the same company. But we cannot say that please pull into single place. But still we have to bring the context, give the intelligence, and that is the biggest challenge we need to solve.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Alok?
Hey, thanks. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm from Corteva, and Corteva is an agri-science company. So we deal with farmers, we deal with soil, we deal with equipments. So data get generated from various sources. It's a very, very heavily federated, right? And the challenge with us is finally, even we do have other systems like system of records, we call it, and SAP, Salesforce and all, where a lot of structured data is also coming. So our challenge is to have balancing the creation of this federated data in such a way where we can integrate it, as well we are able to provide the unified ways of ways by which the decision making is easy. So that is one of the biggest challenge which we feel, like distributed data, how to integrate it with us, and then give that as a solution for our leadership for decision making.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge. The CIOs also end up facing that. Thank you so much. Harpreet?
Yeah, so I'll give you a lens which is a little different than either a technologist or, it's really coming from how we see the use of data. And to me, the issue is not should we centralize data, should we not centralize data. I think that battle is going to be lost because of, as we talked, regulatory requirements, data being generated at a particular point, the volume of data and the cost of trying to move the data. And when you look at AI and analytics, there's no doubt, as people talking about it, they don't fail because of the model.
Correct.
They fail because of the underlying data. And they fail on connecting the data to the work that needs to be done. So actually, when I look at data gravity wars, or challenges, not wars, whatever you want to call it, to me, it's really about understanding the core business processes and then aligning the data to what needs to be achieved, and having the right governance and ownership around it. So to me, that's the thing. I mean, data can be created, but is there governance around the data? And do you understand what that data is supposed to achieve, and what's the process going to get? So to me, it's process intelligence along with data intelligence to get the outcome that you're looking for.
Quite a poignant point, I take it. So let's start with some context around how each gentleman is going to be asked. So they belong to various sectors, so we're going to ensure that they speak a lot more about what's happening in their sector. So Anzi, insurance, critical sector again, and BFSI, surprisingly in India, has adopted technology quite fast compared to its Western counterparts. And I think that reflects a little bit in the GCCs as well. Given insurance move to cloud platforms or digital ecosystems, how is data gravity changing the architecture? And what are global engineering teams doing about it?
Yeah, I think one of the premises on which we started our operations in India is building a data platform. So it came through acquiring a startup which is called Science, which was into cyber risk insurance, and then we kind of built a data platform on top of it. The biggest challenge, even if you really wanted to centralize the data, that's not feasible at this point. Okay. Either it's technically very expensive, then the second thing is that legally it's not even feasible, right? You can't pull the data from a European country to another geographical area. So the idea is that we really wanted to architect the solution in a manner which is traditionally different, which is built on a data mesh architecture. We really wanted to expose the compute to the place where the data resides. Not the other way. We don't want to pull the data from the data store, but rather extend the compute to the data where the data resides. And it has worked beautifully for us. And we also have a platform where we built the data science engineering, where the different data scientists could really come together and look at what are the different models that I need to create, right? The biggest shift for us was, rather than really looking at the data store, we kind of looked at a data stream. Whenever the data is getting streamed, we kind of look at that data from an event mesh architecture point of view. But for example, if I create a claim, immediately I look at whether that claim is a fraud claim or not, right? And then immediately I capture and I give back the data back to the underwriter or the different stakeholders involved. So to answer the question, we have changed from an architecture point of view to a data mesh federated architecture and kind of looked at, can we capture intelligence from the stream than store?
Noted. I think that's a good point. And hinging on that, I'll come to you, Praveen. So you're one of the world's biggest online gaming and betting platform, which means real-time data access is non-negotiable because you're making millisecond decisions, right? Everything from personalization, fraud detection. Now, in this space of fast-moving data streams, how do you deal with data gravity? When business requires data at a millisecond real time, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's actually very core to our business, right? In the sense, betting is not, it's highly regulated industry. It changes every second, and to the point of like we need data every millisecond. So, for instance, if you take the example of say cricket, every ball, every ball that gets pitched, the odds keep changing. And the betting domain keeps evolving over a period of time. So, the recent match that we had, right? I was monitoring the odds, and it changed so rapidly between the New Zealand and India, and that's part of like the core business, right? So, streaming data, very similar to how insurance claims are managed. We also have streaming data, but it's also very close to each geography in the sense that if UK is generating the data, there's regulation around that data, how that can move outside the geography. So basically the way we handle that at scale is, streaming locally, and for analytics purpose, we kind of pull that de-identified into a global data store. So the reason we need that is we need real-time analysis for fraud, cost, cash out. But at the same time, for long-term, the core business potential is based on how you manage the risk. And that requires, long-term training of these models. And that requires, storing data and archiving data at scale. So my motto of saying that to the team is, you stream it and you store it for future.
Stream it and store it. May I ask you, when have you seen seen a massive rush?
Well, World Cups.
Super Bowl,
World
yes.
Cups. Super Bowl is the biggest one. We had Australia where there's a racing week.
Yes.
So racing is really big, on horses. I actually was at Paddy Power Betfair in the UK. This greyhound racing is really big. It's a very diverse market. It's inherent part of the culture where we are present.
I know, it's actually
FanDuel is a very very big name in the US.
It is,
If you
yes.
heard that, FanDuel has a very big presence. We're also exploring new markets.
Do you allow legal betting on cricket?
You can't do that from India.
Okay.
But every state also in the US has its own regulation.
This
That's all I can
discussion
say.
needs to be done in speaker lounge. We'll work out something with Praveen. We'll work out a deal with Praveen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Especially when Virat's batting, I think. We'll have something. So, okay, Shikhar, coming to you. Companies today are building platforms on the massive enterprise data that they've finally discovered can work for us. How is data gravity finally influencing the way enterprises design, build product, deploy? How are they going about it?
Yeah, I want to echo with Aziz. So first thing is federated architecture. We can't pull every data into single place of right, and we need to bring the data. We can stay the data because they are the owners of the data. They are domain specific. That is one reason. And other things like they have their own privacy rules. We have to let it be there. The second one is data alone is not sufficient. We have to make context. So we have to make semantics rules, all the stuff. So that's called ontology in the AI world. We need to create that ontology to make it intelligent system. And third one is take the intelligence to the data rather than bringing data to the intelligence. So it is now easier and costlier, less costlier to take the intelligence to the data rather than earlier we were bringing data, create intelligence. Now create intelligence, whatever defined ontology, take the intelligence to the edge. That's the three aspects I would like to say, design paradigm change I will talk about.
This is more cost optimized than the other.
Yes. That is also important. Our customers ask for less money. Yeah, exactly.
The most important. If we have CFOs in the room, they would be like, why haven't you done this before? Thank you, Shikhar. So, talking about agri-science, right? Data coming across from farms, from supply chains, from research, okay. How does data gravity show up in a global agri-science corporation?
Right. So as you mentioned that, like, we have a data coming from various ways.
True.
Forms, we have a data from satellites, weather.
Yes.
So it's quite federated. I mean, you can understand easily, like tactiles, right? And we have a sensors in tactiles. If I want to finalize when to irrigate, then that is something the data is coming to us. That is a scenario. So we have to have data which is coming from edge, number one. Second, we have a data which is pretty much geographically, because seed is such a product where data should not be spread or go beyond the country. That's the scenario.
Okay.
So reasons, geography will come in picture. So that's the way this entire federated data is with us. It's definitely very difficult because if it is at the edge, then we need to maintain the speed and agility.
True.
Because if we put in a cloud and go back and give the data analytics to the former back, it won't work out. Latency. I mean, a lot of villages and places where we don't have internet available.
Yes.
So how to handle that? So these are the various challenges when we talk about the data. And based on this, I think still the global teams, they look forward, okay, how to talk about the yield optimization, how to talk about the standardization, right? So those aspects, if they need to cover, then we will definitely move the data from one stage to another stage and then provide that analytics to the global level. So that is the only way, but I do agree. Our data is, one is at edge, which has been very, very heavily federated, and another way where the data is on cloud, where we are doing a lot of planning, decision making, etc.
Okay. So the tussle is how do we interconnect the systems so the data is a single pane of truth.
Correct. You're right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Harpreet, let me come to you. You have a ringside view of organizations who are trying to modernize their data architecture or also find out newer operating models, right? When enterprises talk about the data gravity today, where do you think on ground level the challenge exists?
Yeah, so from our lens, I think it's working. It's not about platform. Okay, I think there are lots of platforms. You can, our friends out there, Snowflakes, Databricks, you name it. I think in our mind, it's organizational friction that creates the biggest challenge with data. Everybody talks about, hey, I should centralize my data, but we know you can't centralize every data. Whether it's cost, whether it's regulatory, whether it's there. The biggest challenge is understanding, which was what I was saying even in the beginning, is understanding what that data is going to be used for, how those processes are executed, the linkages between elements of the end-to-end chain, and that's where I think GCCs, where you have end-to-end ownership and you have visibility to end-to-end impact, becomes relevant. And then it becomes about data ownership, data governance, and the ability to control that piece. I mean, this whole thing about should it be in a big data lake or should it be a mesh structure, actually in some way talks about organizational friction.
I agree.
So in our perspective, you can't talk about the data without understanding what the data is supposed to do for it, for you, and then the lineage and the governance that sits on the data. And underlying that is the processes that run on it. And these are not discrete individual processes. These are end-to-end processes which impact the outcome. I mean, you're looking at credit score, you're looking at behavior, you're looking for fraud. All those are not one process. They're an end-to-end stream. And that's how I look at data gravity wars. That's how we see the discussion that when we're having with clients. It's less about the technology. It's less about the architecture.
It's more about people and processes.
It's really about why I need this data, how will I use this data, how will I ensure that there is enough lineage to data to be valid at the time of point, and what is the interconnectivity with this, what this data says to the next. I mean, you can do planning, but if you do planning without looking at inventory, it's unrelated.
Context. I completely agree. So let's talk about how companies are solving the problem as well, right? So, Ansi, let me come to you. it's been a decade since I've been reporting on emerging technologies. 10 years ago, we were talking about cloud native. Today also, we're talking about cloud native. And insurance is now moving from legacy core to cloud native. And on top of it, they're building AI or digital services. In your experience, what architectural approaches work the best today?
I think you can have the greatest technology, but if it doesn't actually create a business outcome for the customer, is immaterial, right? It doesn't help. So we have customers who've been in the insurance industry for the last 70 years. There are customers who are there in the industry for the 80 years. So there is a very significant pileup of data across multiple systems, which the customer is not ready to get away from, right? So that's a reality. So even if I go to the customer and say that structurally you need to or reorganize yourself is practically impossible for us, right? So that's where we kind of look at is what could be the fundamental differentiation that we could bring. The reality is that the customer has a heterogeneous landscape where we are going with a cloud native solution, which is at the core of where everything sits. And as a software provider, I should give the flexibility for the customer to make sure that they could consume large data sets, very diverse data stores which are there in the landscape and create insights out of it. That's my fundamental, that's my foundational delivery to the customer. The second aspect is primarily with artificial intelligence coming in, the complexity has again gone really higher because of the fact that if the data is not connected, you can't really create an insight out of it. You cannot really create an intelligence. That's what, especially the context really matters, right? So from our perspective, I think there are customers where we have gone with hybrid tenancy, where we have a multi-tenant cloud native core. At the same time, they also have a single tenant legacy system. They talk to each other and create insight. We have instances where we have completely gone cloud native. So I think the conversation should really shift from whether you are cloud ready, cloud native, or running on legacy to really to a structure where do we have the right outcomes coming with the technology on that, right? So that's a reality that we have gone with. We are fully cloud native. We extend our cloud native solutions to our customer, but customers most of the times have very complex landscape which we have to kind of support for a long term.
There's one CIO I met and she said, I have a 200-year-old worth data. How am I going to put it on ERP? I said, I think time to move.
Yeah, I think prior to this, I was working with a large enterprise software organization where even in India, I have done installations where 18 ERP systems are connected, one of the largest telephone provider in India. 18 ERP systems are connected and data streaming happens all throughout.
Correct.
So the kind of data footprint many of these customers are sitting is huge.
Absolutely.
And they will not be ready to move away from that, yeah.
No, and that's the point, right? The biggest customers are legacy customers.
Yeah.
So you can't it's a catch-22 situation. Absolutely. Praveen, coming to you, right? Data has been the core, detecting fraud or engagement, etc. The conversation is let's bring intelligence to edge, let's bring data to edge. How do you avoid the bottlenecks? What's the architecture for that?
I think the way I see that, the architecture is quite commoditized by now, right? So if you look at the core, the edge framework is very commoditized, like the way we do it, way in agriculture data systems do it. You see a very common emerging theme. There's not a lot of architectural difference I see when I look at the grand scheme of things. So at the core, it's actually an operational problem. It's a cost problem, it's a business problem, right? If you go and ask any commoditized vendor, they'll tell you the same architecture. It's not different. If they do say something different, either they don't know what they're talking about, or we're not clearly asking the right question.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, architecture is very commoditized. If you go to Databricks or Snowflake, or yet another vendor on the field, they'll all do very similar things. How you apply that to your business and how you get the bottom line, value to your stakeholders is what differentiates each execution. The way we do it, we are big into streaming. because we have to draw insights as soon as a bet is placed, as soon as an action is taken, within milliseconds. Otherwise, it's a bottom line impact. So we're big into streaming. We stream data as soon as we have actionable idea about what we need to do. And then we also get it to a centralized data warehouse. It feels very similar to how like how you do your traditional ETLs, but there's always a combination of doing just-in-time analytics, just-in-time decision-making, and a unified data model, but it's very, very segmented with geography based on the business we are actually operating in. So very commoditized, like, AI as we talk, cloud is very commoditized. Now, no one thinks about spinning up an EC2 instance now. It's very commoditized. 15 years ago, that was like the state of art. But now it's very commoditized. In 5 years, you will see that the rapid transition of AI and Gen AI do the same. So I think we're right at the cusp of the 5th gen innovation.
I agree. Thank you so much, Praveen. Shikhar, let me come to you. Now, by the virtue of GCC being here, the parent multinational is elsewhere, by definition, data rests across multiple clouds, multiple geographies, different regulations impacting it. Now, the 2026 is the year where AI needs to scale. That is the conversation. What kind of architecture needs to exist for data and the products to scale to the level of, to multitude level? Yeah.
While we speak, today morning I had a call with customer, largest oil refinery in the world, and we implemented about 7 years back an enterprise system. This question, Sekhar, what is your suggestion? The question you asked me today, what is exactly? I asked him back, will you allow me to put the data back into central system? So my answer is, neither extreme wins. Neither extremes win. So we cannot have everything in central repository, and all AI meshes every place doesn't win. So it's a hybrid approach. We have to pick it up. So we have to leave the data, and whatever data relevant, bring it to the central, and build that intelligence system at the center, enterprise governance, and agents run across the ecosystem. That is my approach, I would like to say. And as part of GCC, I think we have developed that whole expertise of industry knowledge. We have been working for the 15 years with the customers. We have the understanding of the business. So GCC is playing a crucial role. AI innovation, Hyderabad is a big place, and overall India. Sure. So all these are helping GCC to pick up this shift mind. So we are able to support our corporates to deliver what they need it. Yeah.
Isn't it difficult to have agents ubiquitous and floating across these interconnected systems?
It is, of course, difficult. Maybe if I would say probably 3-4 months back, I was not imagining, but day in, day out, we start to see playing it, it's talking to each other. It's an agent creating another agent automatically and running it. In the movie, Rajnikant was creating his own Rajnikant. So that's reality now after 20 years. Shankar, you imagine now, it is possible. It's just a matter of, it's in 2-3 months, we will see it faster, my view.
We created a Frankenstein's monster, but that monster is productive.
Yeah.
Let's hope. Thank you so much. Alok, same question to you, because your situation is also similar. There's data from on-ground farms, and there's highly structured data from the enterprises as well. 2 different data environments, but how do you pull it together?
Right. So as far as the architecture, it's again 3-layer architecture which we have. And generally, if it is edge compute, which we want to have, and make sure like all the forms and federated information which has been provided back to the people and with the proper speed and all. So that is one way. Second, this data, as well as the kind of supply planning, or you can call it various R&D related structured data which is coming on our way. For this, we have a cloud platform. So Azure data platform, which has been utilized at this moment, and which is also generating a lot of intelligence out of it, which helps a lot for our decision making and all. And third layer, where we are generating, we are creating a lot of data, and then, we are accumulating a lot of data, and after that, we are generating a kind of intelligence for the leadership, or intelligence for decision making, intelligence for the people, those who are supposed to take a decision. So that's the way 3 different layers which we have. I think here in GCCs, we play a very important role, because we here curate the data, we compute the data, and then finally we consume the data. So that helps a lot for these 3 C principles, where the entire team and whoever is able to orchestrate these 3 things together would have a win. But it's difficult. It's not that easy.
We will get there. Thank you, Alok. Harpreet, coming to you. Many companies are positioning themselves as data or AI hubs. There's a common theme in conversations today as well that GCCs are the ones where AI innovation is going to happen. We're going to help it scale, not just delivery centers. From your perspective, what capabilities should a GCC build to truly become the enterprise's data center, data command center?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is there are 2-3 building blocks. Like, we've all agreed in some ways that the technical architecture is not a core differentiator. There are lots of platforms, lots of this thing. There is obviously core talent. Okay, the ability to consume the data, to act on that data, as you just talked about it. So obviously there's this whole talent availability, and that's where the GCCs, I think, are uniquely positioned. I think the second is context. Okay, you can't act on the data if you don't have the right context. And as GCCs evolve into real true centers of excellence where they're running end-to-end processes, whether they're in financial services, whether they're in gaming, whether they're in insurance, you know, from first notice of claim to payout, whatever, FNOL to this thing, they know the interdependencies of what is happening on those processes and hence how the data flows through those processes. Where do AI or agentic fail? They don't fail in the core model. They fail at the edge. And now I'm talking about not the edge of this thing, it's the edge of the process. And it's the data that sits at the edge of the process, which is where the GCCs are best capable to this thing. We heard in various sessions that you're seeing the process from different angles, from different markets, from different industries. And I think that's really where the acceleration comes. The acceleration is not coming by just saying, hey, I've got 20 data engineers. It's what you do with them on the basis of the context that you have, and then the orchestration that happens. And I think that's the last piece I would say. We are getting into a multi-agent environment. You have an agent doing order, and you have another agent doing pay, and you have an agent doing this thing. If you don't have a data architecture and a governance layer that does agent orchestration with the right governance, you're going to fail. You're going to have the right data and this thing. So I think that's the other layer, which is where GCCs are playing a huge role because they are, and the reason that is becoming even more important is that lots of people started with POCs. And POCs started in a small function.
You're right.
They did not start end-to-end. It's now bringing those POCs which are in small functions end-to-end that's going to be important. So that's the way I see it, yeah.
Scale the POCs.
Yeah.
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll close it with one more rapid fire. We'll go Anzi, Praveen, Shekhar, Alok, and Harpreet. I'm procrastinating. I'm like, let the gentleman close it for me with the summaries. Okay. Thank you. So quick question and quick answer. If we were to fast forward 3 years, not even 5 years or decade, 3 years, if we were to fast forward 3 years, with agentic systems well embedded into the workflows and systems, what will ultimately win us the data gravity war?
I think what he mentioned, orchestration, is going to be the key differentiator.
Yeah.
And if you really go a little ahead, I think building a control tower for an organization-specific thing to manage the agentic framework is going to be very, very crucial.
Correct. I mean, we just learned LangChain with so much difficulty, and suddenly we are orchestrating it automatically. I'm very pissed at it.
I think it's a multi-cloud, multi-agent model where a lot of times I have seen, I don't know, many of you have seen where one of the top grocery organization in the US, they had extended a chatbot for the customer support. One of the developers signed into that portal and understood that there is a cloud engine behind it.
Yes.
Started using it for creating the code, right? I think it's extremely important for us to understand data governance, how each of the roles are functioning. Data access is going to be very crucial. So if an organization is not ready with an orchestration layer or a control tower, it doesn't make sense to blindly adopt multiple agentic models and expose yourself is kind of my belief.
I agree, Anzi. Thank you so much. Praveen, what will win us the data gravity friction?
I think I'm going to be very bullish on it and say that it'll be agents everywhere. I'm quite bullish on that. The win is going to be multifold in the sense that data and revenue and value will win. Compute has to just follow the dollars, right? So, and the way that is happening is, you could say compute. I think there's going to be a big change in the way compute also evolves. People probably will not realize that the quantum is going to be a giant leap in the next 10 years. So,
yes.
And that's going to change the way data is going to be analyzed and synthesized. So it's going to be a combination, I would say, of those two capabilities. And you'll see agents everywhere. They're already there. We just don't realize it as much because there's the micro front ends kind of hide it. But I'm quite bullish on it.
I'm waiting for quantum. That's my favorite text. I'm waiting for it. Thank you so much, Praveen, for mentioning it. Shekhar? I know you suggested agents everywhere in the morning, but yes.
As we speak, last Friday we gave a small hackathon in the office. So we have teams called design, build and operate for facilities. We gave work areas. This very creative. They said, okay, I will do the design agent and the other guy creates the, and they started talking to each other. They initiated the whole orchestration they were able to do as a team. So if imagine a couple of days they were able to do it. But that is power of speed of agents coming in way. But one aspect I would like to still say is that, especially in our world of industrial assets, human in the loop will be still there. Maybe the human starts, human ends with the decision, but the gap may come down, but human in the loop still continues after 3 years also, but narrow down comes in, and our expertise still will be some part of it. Because you said 3 years, I'm still hoping we will be human in the loop is more, yeah.
I don't know if it's going to even hold for 3 years. Just for proprietary sake, I said 3 years. But I completely agree. Human in the loop is going to be the cornerstone of all the framework and the guardrails we put. Thank you. Alok?
For me, number one is context, which is rightly said.
Yes.
Very important, because in our world, agri-science world, if you have one end where you have a very distributed, heavily edged data, another way we have quite centralized, unified, well-structured data, as well as third is agents. So context is very important, and I would say agents everywhere possible, but in my case, if it is very edged at farmer level, very difficult, right? But within centralized model, it is quite possible. There we want to make sure speed and agility is covered.
At the farmer level.
At farmer level,
Yes.
very important. If it is not done, then definitely there's no use of data, whatever we are gathering.
Agree.
And other side of the table, we have well-standardized, globalized, or even regulated data, which can help us for. So this side, I think agents will work very well, and I'm thinking like to reduce the cost and increase the speed. That's the best way to go for the agents.
Thank you, Alok. I'm like, someone's going to mention cost, and I'm going to... Thank you. Yes.
All right, that seemed to be the last mile. If you go from what I've been saying, and I'll summarize it in my perspective, I actually think it's the enterprise orchestration, the underlying process orchestration and the process intelligence and the data intelligence coming together, and a real end-to-end view. So for example, at Genpact, we're running something what we call Finance One Hub, which really looks at, let's say, record to report from close, control, and compliance. Or doing a supply chain hub, which looks at all supply chain signals with what it does to buying and elements of outcome. I think and this will evolve to agentic, and if you look at agentic, to me, it is the interoperability, very deep domain, and then governance. I think these are the pieces that are going to come together. I don't know whether it's going to be 3 years down the line, because we really don't know what's there 3 months down the line. What Claude's going to come up, Anthropic's going to come up next, what they're going to claim. I mean, all these things are going to redefine both the speed and the adoption of what we do.
I completely agree, and that's a good point to close the session on. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule and joining us in this conversation. We are richer for the insights you shared. And thank you to the audience. Thank you so much.